Hello, Read It here. Today we're going to read a story from our /Entitle parents. Now, for our first story, Waterpark Karen. It's been a while since I posted, but I'm back with a good one. As a reminder, I'm a lifeguard at a water park, and I deal with Karens a lot. But recently I was actually promoted to head guard, aka manager, which is a whole new ballpark. This is something that happened today. I worked a 14.5-hour shift, so I saw a lot, but nothing pissed me off more than this. So, down to the story. I started the day with the basic head guard stuff, starting the water up, riding the guard rotation, etc. We opened at 9 like we usually do, and it was good until about 10:12 specifically. A family came in, a mom, dad, young daughter, and 3 teenage boys, all about 17 to 18. Immediately, the boys were trouble for my guards. I got at least 10 complaints about them, but they were staggered. They were going from one half to a different half every time they get in trouble because there's no communication between halves. Regardless, it reached its tipping point at 4 o'clock, just into the second shift. I also need to add, I am infamous among the staff for the way I deal with Karens, entitled kids, and rude guests. I have zero tolerance. Anyway, back to the story. I heard a long, loud double whistle while checking the cameras in the first aid room. That means one of 3 things: accident, injury, or attention. I headed over to see a fuming mother screaming at one of my guards. In fact, one of my friends from when I was a normal guard, so I was immediately on edge with this one. I came up and asked her, "Can I help with something?" EM for entitled mom, me for well me. EM dash, yes, this bitch dash, me dash, let's watch the language. Exasperated sigh. EM dash, this guard banned my son and his friends from this slide for no reason. I looked over. It was them, the thorns on my side. Nah, I see. Guard name, watch your water, I can handle this. I turned back to the mom. Me dash, ma'am, I'm going to be honest with you. Your son and his friends aren't banned from the slide. EM dash, so then why dash? I raised a hand to continue. Me dash, they're banned from the park. She exploded. Why this, why that, you asshole, blah blah the works. Eventually she calmed down and said why. They haven't done anything wrong. Me dash, actually they've broken nearly every rule we have and have been causing problems all day. EM dash, what have they really done? What could they have possibly dash me dash? They've endangered themselves, other guests, and my lifeguards with their reckless behavior. EM, frankly enraged dash. How have they endangered people? Me started to get worked up dash. They've gone down every slide the wrong way, jumped out halfway down, nearly hit people while playing dodgeball with the basketballs, which is against the rules anyway, and I have guards posted at the bottom of every slide. Them coming out incorrectly endangers my guards. They easily could have given themselves and nearly everyone around them concussions, or at worst broken bones. They need to leave. EM dash. Well, we pay for a room for 2 nights. Me. Increasingly angry dash. And that isn't a problem. You, your husband, and your daughter can all stay and enjoy the park. The boys, however, have to leave. They can either be taken home by one of you, or they can stay in their room for the rest of the night. EM, flabbergasted and trying to regain control dash, but what if dash me? Done with her shit dash, ma'am, I don't know what gave you the impression this was a debate. You are in no position to argue. You are in a position to comply. So, if they don't leave in the next 10 minutes, they will be removed. She stood there for a moment, in shock, then got uppity and went to the hot tub. I decided she didn't get the tan if she wasn't going to use them. I took my walkie out and said, "Head guard to security desk. Code yellow." That's the code for guest removal. They came in, we found the kids, took them to their parents, and then escorted them to their rooms while they were still drying themselves off. I may have been a bit of a dick, not gonna lie, but she was being combative and I had other more important things to do. Because of her, I was late on my chems checking chlorine levels in the water, flow state, etc. So I was done with the entire situation. On top of that, she called my friend, an employee, a bitch, so that doesn't slide. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. You waited far too long to kick them out if they had been behaving that way for 6 hours. They should have been gone by noon if they were endangering so many people. Comment 2. Water park security does not mess around in my experience. Where I grew up used to have a park with some roller coasters and a water park. My friends and I all got season passes one year, and our parents would take turns dropping us off and picking us up. Every time we were bothered, it was taken care of. Sometimes before we even noticed there was an issue. Comment 3. Go on you for backing up staff. That goes a long way in earning respect and getting the most from those you work with. I suspect that's one of the reasons you were promoted. And 2 thumbs up for putting that Karen in her place. I hope you and your team have a Karen-free holiday. Comment 4. I wish my bosses would have our backs like this. Congrats. Instead, spoiled people abuse the customer service channel to say all kings of things we did that are greatly exaggerated at best or just plain lies, and we have to listen to boss telling us to improve. I'm in healthcare, BTW. Now, for our second story, my encounter with an entitled dad at Claire's. So I was at my local mall last Saturday with my dad, and after eating, I decided to treat myself to some earrings and accessories at Claire's since I hadn't been there in a while. After grabbing a hairband for my holiday outfit, I went to go and get some earrings. There's a man with his 2 kids that are also right by the earrings, and at first things were normal. But then the display starts to spin, and I look up and see one of the kids spinning the display like a fidget toy. The dad taps his shoulder to try to get him to stop, and then goes back to shopping. I decided to say something funny about it, so I said, there's an actual human being behind this thing trying to look at stuff too. Unfortunately, it backfired on me because the dad starts yelling at me and accuses me of being rude. I apologize to him and I try to tell him that I had no intention of being rude, but this male Karen wasn't having it. He goes on to say that he's only 8 years old. You should understand that. This is a store for kids. I just stood there in shock as he yelled this at me, wondering why he felt the need to yell at a young woman who did absolutely nothing wrong because he couldn't control his 8-year-old boy. I make my selection and head to the checkout counter only to be stuck in line behind the dad who just yelled at me. I had to stay absolutely quiet the whole time I was behind him because if he turned around and saw me, I knew I was screwed. Once he left, I breathed a sigh of relief, glad that this encounter was finally over. I guess if I learned anything from this, it's that not everyone can take a joke. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. It's like step 1 of how to raise an asshole. Never accept guilt for anything you do. A child as young as 4 can be taught how to behave in a store. So an 8-year-old is more than capable of learning to not be disruptive. Maybe a male Karen is a Darren? With apologies to anyone named Darren. Comment 2. I was a teacher for 30+ years. Entitled parents produce entitled kids. They are a nightmare in the classroom and are often underachievers to the ultimate degree. Comment 3. Next time, grab the display and stop it. I've had to do this with adults who don't acknowledge another person is looking at a display. I've also wedged an item to keep it from being turned. I don't damage the item, just put it in such a way the display doesn't turn. Comment 4. LL of the people saying he's 8, he should know better. If the kid is autistic, like I was, he may have a hard time connecting the dots between other people are in the store and other people may want to look at this, and therefore I shouldn't spin it around as a fidget toy. Autism is more complicated than that, but that's the best analogy I can really come up with to describe how it feels. I have no reason to suspect that the kid is autistic, but I felt it was important to mention that no, not every kid who doesn't understand things like this is a selfish brat who hasn't been raised properly. Also, even if the kid is autistic, it doesn't excuse the dad's behavior. Now, for our third story. I, 17M, am fed up with my entitled sister and my mom who always sides with her. Every special occasion has been ruined by them. When I turned 16, I wanted to go to an amusement park with a few friends to celebrate my sweet 16. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, and even saved up some of my own money to buy snacks and souvenirs. My mom said my sister had to come, even though I begged her not to bring her. She promised my sister would behave, but I knew better. From the moment we got in the car, my sister started complaining. She didn't like the music, the seatbelt was too tight, and she didn't want to sit in the back. My mom immediately snapped at me to switch seats with her, so I ended up crammed in the back while my sister stretched out in the front. At the park, things only got worse. She refused to go on any of the rides my friends, and I wanted to try. Every time we got in line for something, she whined about how it was scary or boring and demanded we go somewhere else. My mom told me to compromise and let her pick some rides, so we ended up wasting nearly an hour on kiddie rides that none of us wanted to go on. When we finally got to a roller coaster, I had been looking forward to my sister, threw a full-blown tantrum screaming that she was scared and didn't want to be left alone. My mom forced me to skip it and stay with her. Then came lunch. I wanted pizza, but my sister demanded burgers. My mom said it was easier to just get burgers to avoid another meltdown. While eating, my sister knocked over her drink and started crying about how her clothes were wet. My mom blamed me for not helping her sooner and made me give her my jacket. The rest of the day was just more whining and complaining until my mom finally decided we should leave early because my sister was too tired to keep going. My friends were clearly annoyed, and I felt embarrassed for dragging them into such a disaster. There were plenty of other times she ruined my day, like my 14th birthday party, and much, much more. But honestly, it is too much to even write about. I'm just counting down the days until I can leave this house and never look back. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. Dear young Opie, I am truly sorry that 3 years worth of your birthdays have been ruined, and I feel for you. This is not your fault, Opie, and I want you to remember this. Your mom is failing 2 kids here. Firstly, she is playing favorites against you, and she has shown she doesn't bother to try and compartmentalize to give you some leeway for your birthdays. Secondly, she is failing your younger sibling by teaching them the biggest social faux pas as a human being. They cannot have their way all the time, and everything is all about them, and when they enter a cold, hard world, that world won't be so kind to them. How old is your sibling? Anyway, while you wait to turn 18, I hope you save enough money to be able to move out. While you wait turning 18, plan ahead how you want to celebrate turning 18 with your friends so that mom and sibling cannot butt in and ruin another one. At the same time, plan the day you move out with a bang, which you can start 6 months before the big day. Slowly move your stuff out secretly, little by little, e.g. school certificates, souvenirs, and mementos to a friend's house for safe keeping until the day you leave. Any application you make to your university or trade school, make sure the correspondent address is a friend's home address in case mom sabotages your chances of leaving for good. Do talk to your school counselor on how to apply for a scholarship or financial aid to help pay for your further studies after high school. In the meantime, do look for a part-time job where you can save up as much as you can. Comment 2. Every time your mother supports your sister over you despite your sister's behavior, tell her to make a mental note of this occasion to look back on when you eventually inevitably disown her. Example number 17 of your obvious favoritism. And another event to add to the long list of reasons I'll eventually go no contact. Make a show of actually making a note in a notebook/diary for that sole purpose. Don't do any of that if you're hoping for an inheritance. Comment 3. She's 12, presumably then 11, and your mother made her tag along for a lad's, age 16, outing? I would say that's shocking, but I read too much Reddit. I'm so sorry you've been treated this way. I have 2 girls who are now 25 and 23, still at home. And even with only 2 years difference, I'd make sure that the younger sibling wasn't allowed to tag along with her older sister for parties and outings. There's a big difference in 2 years, never mind 4 or 5. I'm genuinely gobsmacked and so upset for you. Where's your father in this? Is it just the 3 of you, or does he enable her too? When you leave home and go and see, which you absolutely should, your mother will wonder why. Comment 4. And then they'll get furious and try to guilt trip you for abandoning them. Clearly, you're the scapegoat and your sister is the golden child. Run far, run fast. Don't look back. That dynamic is so unhealthy. Also, I put in writing to your mother that since she's clearly chosen your sister in all the ways, sister will be the one responsible for her elder care in her declining years. It's shocking the number of parents who exhibit clear favoritism, then are shocked when GC fucks off and abandons them, then have the audacity to demand the scapegoat take care of them in their old age. Also shocking how many scapegoats fall for the guilt trip. Put it in writing and email yourself a screenshot. Save it forever, so you and she will both know you've made your stance clear in a manner that gave her plenty of notice. Now, for our 4th story. Mom and sister angry when I refused to babysit. This happened many moons, nearly 20 years ago, but the audacity of those in the story remains. They still bring this issue up from time to time. At the time this story took place, I was homeschooling my 3 boys, 7 for 2, and had an infant daughter, 5 Mo's. I found out I was pregnant with my daughter months after she announced her pregnancy and was immediately berated by my mother as to why can't you let your sister have her moment, when my mother was well aware of our plans to add a fourth child to our family at a specific time. As it happened, my daughter is 7 months younger than my nephew. I had originally offered to babysit him and breastfeed him because of my sister's finances for free while she went back to school to finish her master's degree. When my nephew was about a year old, sister opted to wait on school. I was asked if I would watch my nephew for a few hours. I said okay, as long as he is picked up at the agreed-upon time since I needed to run my school day. We usually worked on lessons in the morning until early afternoon, but I was willing to shift down for the day. My mom and my sister agreed to this and dropped nephew off at 8 a.m. with a promise to pick him up at noon. 11:30 comes around and this child starts crying. I know nothing about his medical issues, so I try to feed him the lunch packed by his mother. He ate 3 bites and refused more. I put the food away and offered a bottle. The breastfeeding option was off the table at this point. 11:45 and this child is still crying. I've changed his diaper, offered food and drink. I'm holding him and he still won't stop crying. My 5-month-old joins in wailing. I tried to put her down in her crib and she wailed louder. We later learned she had infant GERD, so I'm now sitting on the floor with 2 wailing babies who won't let me put them down for their own reasons. I kept looking at the clock and telling myself I can hold on for another 15 minutes. All while this is happening, my ex-DH was working from home, so I'm doing my best to manage 2 screaming babies while he's working in the next room. I had given the boys some random activities to keep them out of trouble. 12 o'clock rolls around, and my sister and my mom have not arrived as agreed. This was unusual for them since they were always early for things. I call my sister's cell, straight to voicemail. I call my mom's cell, straight to voicemail. So I called my sister's cell again and left a message. I ended up calling every 15 to 20 minutes and leaving a voicemail on both cells because my mom and my sister decided to turn off their phones and do whatever because they didn't have the baby with them. 6 o'clock comes around and they are finally pulling into my driveway. I found out that they went shopping in another town. I'm livid. My nephew is beet red from crying for nearly 6 hours. I answered the door and without a word handed over the baby and his diaper bag. I walked his car seat out to their car and walked back inside the house, turned off the porch light, and locked my door. Edit 1. My boys missed school that day because I wasn't able to console the 2 babies. I also had to have the older boys make lunch for themselves and their brother due to being incapacitated by someone else's kid. I routinely wore my daughter to get chores and school done. My mom had the audacity to ask a couple of weeks later if I would watch my nephew. I simply said no. When she retorted that I had been willing to watch him on a regular basis, I told her that was before she and my sister abandoned him at my house and turned off their phones, leaving me no way to contact them in case of an emergency. They still bring up that I went back on my offer without taking any responsibility for their part. Actions have consequences, and they FAFO on this one. Edit 2. Since this is a recurring question in the comments, I am going to address it here. I don't choose to continue contact with either of my sisters or my mother. The snide comments get made on the occasions when they feel I should be included in a group chat containing the 4 of us. My other sister agrees with our mom and GC sister. I have removed myself from many such group chats. I don't initiate contact. I get pulled into group chats about my mom's hospital visits because no one in my extended family believes in LC or NC situations. I read the texts and go about my way. Edit 3. This is not a current situation. This happened nearly 20 years ago. My nephew's father was out of the picture before the baby was born, so he didn't even know what was going on. My mom helped my sister raise her kid with disastrous effect. My boys only homeschooled, 3 years total, due to the poor quality of the school we were zoned for, and private school was not an option for us. They were involved in proper socializing activities and integrated well into public school once we moved to a better district. I opted at the time to refrain from calling the police or CPS because this was a first-time occurrence, and I didn't know if something had happened and they were in trouble. Given it was new behavior, I gave the benefit of the doubt. Given my GC sister's sordid past, CPS would have had a field day with the situation, and I would have been blamed. I instead opted to keep the child in my care and refused to watch him again. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. Yeah, I guess your sister is the GC and you the scapegoat. I moved 1,800 miles from home at age 18 to get away from that crap. You have my sympathy. Oh, and when my mom was laying in her bed, dying, all the GC sister could say was how she was going to be rich, inheritance, but mom was not rich. That's just how stupid my sister is. GC sister didn't give a crap about our mom. Comment 2. Your sister is almost as bad as this woman who left her newborn at daycare at a ski resort with no breast milk. She was supposed to come back after a couple hours of skiing, but didn't come back until the slopes closed at 5 p.m. So her newborn was at daycare screaming from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with no milk and explicit directions not to drink formula or have a bottle. The daycare should have called CPS, but didn't, so the baby suffered while their bitch mother skilled all day without answering her phone. Comment 3. If it had been me, I would have been seriously considering calling the police for child abandonment when they failed to arrive at noon and refused to answer their phones. I'd probably have voiced my concerns about being worried about their well-being, seeing as they promised to be back by noon, and the fact that neither of them were picking up their phones when you tried calling. After all, what kind of mother and grandmother refuses to respond to a call from their child/grandchild's caregiver when it might be an emergency? I don't blame you one bit for refusing to honor your offer. After all, they refused to honor your allotted time frame that they agreed to. Comment 4. They had no reason, they just took advantage and expected you to roll over. While they may not believe in low to no contact, if you do and set boundaries, then it is what it is. First, my phone and social media access would be cut off from family. I don't want to see you, and you don't need to see me. Shaking my head bizarre. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more.